Welcome everyone to the Indigenous Women of the Americas Defending Mother Earth Treaty Compact of 2015 Summer Solstice Action Webinar. So glad that you're all here. Our guests today will be Joy Braun, Isabella Zizi. Unfortunately, Noemi is not able to get reception from line 3, and Joy's probably going to tell you a little bit about that because she's been to line 3 just recently, so she won't be here. Joy is going to fill in for the information that Noemi was going to share from there. I want to thank Shannon Biggs of Movement Rights for handling all the webinar stuff for us, and also Katie Nels and Allison Ihara Brown, who are both signatories on the treaty and who are handling the Facebook live stream. So thank you all for participating in getting this word out. Let's see. So I just want to say that we've had some successes lately with fossil fuels, and it's been very just heartwarming for all of us who've been doing this work forever. And you know, the fact that the Keystone XL pipeline is permanently stopped is just a huge big deal, and you know, it lays the groundwork for these other pipelines to be stopped because it's the same reasons, right? And so we're really happy about that. And oh, I didn't introduce myself. I'm sorry. I tend to just kind of ramble. So my name is Penny Opal Plant, and I am Yaqui on my mom's side and undocumented Choctaw and Cherokee on my dad's side. I'm zooming in from occupied Huichin Ohlone territory, also known as the San Francisco East Bay. Where I live, I see the Chevron refinery every single day, as I did when I was growing up. I was born and raised here. And a lot of people don't realize there's 5 refineries along the Northeast San Francisco Bay. And one of them is transitioning to biofuels, but that also comes with its own host of problems. So, you know, we still have a lot to do, even when the refineries transition off of fossil fuels into something else. We have to be mindful, all of us, about you know, what is really going to sustain and restore the sacred system of life. So the webinar will start with me sharing a little bit about the treaty. Lots of you probably don't really know about that. And then I'll introduce Joy Braun, who is one of my most beloved people on the planet. I have so much respect for Joy. She's such a warrior. Then we'll hear from Isabella Zizi, who's a member of Idle No More and a signatory on the treaty. And then after that, we'll answer your questions. And yeah, so I'll just dive into the treaty, and I'm so glad that you're all joining us. Took notes this time so that I wouldn't forget anything. So the story of the treaty starts with Casey Camp Horinek, our beloved relative from the Ponca Nation, who was at the COP that was in Peru in 2014. So I think that was COP 20. And she was in a room with a lot of Indigenous women from North, Central, and South America. And the seed was planted in her heart at that time of this treaty, a treaty that would unite women from the Americas to protect and defend the sacred system of life. And she moved that forward. I helped her a little bit. She called on me to do that. And in the spring and summer of 2015, we were working on and received funding. We thought that the treaty would be signed down in the Amazon with our sisters down there. And it was like moving through Jello. It was so difficult for us to get there, even though we had the funding. And then one of our sisters down in the Amazon let us know that they were all going to be in New York for New York Climate Week in September of that year, 2015. So we went, okay, well, that's where we're supposed to go. So we all met there, and the signatories on that treaty were in New York, the Central Park in New York. And it was Casey, Gloria Ushigwasanti, Paula Chancoso, Patty Walenga, Melina Lubican Massimo, Sharif Weintlin was there. I feel like I'm leaving somebody out. Oh, I should just look. My husband painted this. Let's see. I think I covered everyone. Oh, and Candy, um, uh, Crystal, Crystal from the tar sands, and myself. And we had a ceremony there in a little tucked away part of the park. And there were some amazing things that happened. One of the amazing things was that we didn't realize that all of the sounds of New York City and the sounds of the park had gone silent until a red cardinal at the end of the ceremony came up into a tree that was just like a few feet from us and started to sing. And then all of the sounds came back. And it was at that moment that I personally realized that this treaty, it has its own spirit. And that spirit was what was preventing us from going to the Amazon, and made sure that we were in New York City, because that day of the treaty signing was a full moon, uh, the harvest moon, a blood moon, and a total lunar eclipse that could be seen in totality from that part of the world, from the East Coast in New York, and wouldn't have been able to be seen in the Amazon or on the West Coast. And so since that time, there have been many signatories that have signed on to the treaty, different actions that we've been at, and Joy signed on. I think that was in 2015. But when was the Native Nations Rise? Joy, I think that was when you signed the treaty, 2016, maybe. But anyways,
2016, yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of us all over the Americas, and the treaty goes, you can find it at indigenouswomenrising.org. You can read the entire treaty there, but it goes through what human beings have done to harm our beautiful Mother Earth, and it goes through specifically what we already see rolling out now and happening with the increased ferocity of storms and tornadoes and droughts, and more rain and water than should be there, and hardly any rain and water where we need it, where it's really dry. And then it goes through what we are to do as Indigenous women. And it's not just Indigenous women, like we all have a responsibility at this time to ensure that the generations coming into the future have a sustainable, healthy, safe, and equitable world to live in. And for the very first time, that's up to the people who are alive right now. That's up to us. That's up to you, and it's up to us. And it's time that we all do everything that we can to make sure that that they can survive. For those of us who are older, I'm in my 60s. When I think about what's already been stolen from children because of corporate harms, it's just really sad to me. And so the treaty goes through that, and it goes through our responsibilities as women to the water. So in most of the tribes that I know of, women have a special relationship with the water, partly because we carry more water in our bodies than men do. And when our babies are in our bellies, they are in the sea of our belly. And when they're born in a great wave of water into this world. And just about every religion in the world has some kind of water ceremony for babies when they're born. And so it's our responsibility to take care of the waters. It's our responsibility to make sure that there is clean, safe, sustainable water for all the babies to come. And so in the Bay Area here, we have a pretty active group of signatories on the treaty. And there are several obligations. One is for everyone to really dive into understanding and protecting Indigenous rights, and to conduct a new moon ceremony, praying for wisdom and guidance in how we are to move forward. Because you know, we're silly human beings that have caused a lot of problems, and we understand that there are helpers there, that we have our ancestors there, and everybody does. It doesn't matter where you're from or from what tradition you are or what part of the world your ancestors are from. They are there to help and support you and guide you, as are our unseen helpers. And so it's just a matter of getting quiet enough to listen. And that's what our new moon ceremony is about. And we also pray with and for the waters at our new moon ceremonies. One of the other obligations is that we conduct a nonviolent direct action on every solstice and equinox. And we have been doing that since the winter solstice of 2015. And we've done many, many things. We've, you know, we're very active in doing actions at the Army Corps of Engineers during Standing Rock and the Federal Building. And if you live in the Bay Area, you probably, and you are active, you've probably been to some of our solstice and equinox actions and our new moons. So that's a little bit about the treaty. It's a living document. It guides us in ways that we didn't understand before it was made manifest in this world. And so it's you know, it's a vibrant, beautiful, living document. At one point, I had this image of the treaty, and it was Mother Earth herself, like in space, right? There's Mother Earth. She's so big and so beautiful and so tiny from far away. And she had arms, and she had a beautiful shawl on with really long fringe, and she was holding the treaty in front of her as she was moving through space. You know, it was maybe someday I'll paint that image. It was really beautiful. So we'll move on now to, I'm very happy to be able to introduce Joy Braun. Joy is a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. She's the national pipeline order for the Indigenous Environmental Network. She was one of the first campers at Sacred Stone Camp and moved to Ochudee-Sokolin Camp and was at Black Hoop or Seven Generation camps during the eviction of the camps that sprung up to fight the Dakota Access Pipeline at the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. Joy has long fought the Keystone XL pipeline, which resurrected its head at the same time DAPL did. But it's gone. Woohoo! No more Keystone. That was a good day, right, Joy?
Yeah.
She's also making stands to protect the sacred back hills, her ancestral sacred lands, against fracking, uranium mining, and gold mining. Joy is a former editor with Sitanka Vision and Lakota Voice, and was just recently at the Line 3 camp. And so thank you so much, Joy, for joining us today. Thank you.
Hi, Penny. Hi, everybody. Penny is also one of my favorite people. Pete washte wambe weka we imachi happy. Chante washte na pe tiuza happy. Wakpa washte imati ha. So I said that my name is Eagle Feather Woman. I greeted you all with a hearty handshake and I wished you all a good day. And I said that I'm from Four Bands, or the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, which is located in South Dakota. And yeah, it was very exciting news to hear that Keystone XL was finally dead, that zombie pipeline was dead and gone. There's some sweeping up we got to do with that. With TransCanada still trying to take the land from landowners. It hasn't dropped the fight against that. Um, and of course, the Texas lawsuit with all those pouting Republican governors. So, but then it's dead, and so that's a good thing. Um, Wanted to give an update regarding Dakota Access Pipeline. We had, it's really one of the things that we've been trying to tell the Biden administration and the new secretaries that are coming into office um, for like the Army Corps of Engineers, Department of Justice, CEQ, all of them, is that Keystone XL, Dakota Access Pipeline, Line 3 pipeline, Line 5, Mountain Valley, Jordan Cove, Bahia Pipeline, that it doesn't matter how many stupid pipelines there are, we're going to keep fighting all of them because it's all one fight. It's because we, as human beings, have become addicted to fossil fuels. We, as human beings, know that there are alternatives to fossil fuels. And if we had put all this money, even just in the last 2 to 5 years, if we had put all that money into developing those things which would replace fossil fuels, we would be in so much better place than we are right now. And right now we are facing a climate catastrophe, and that's not just saying words to say words. You see it every single day. And so, like, I was just at line 3, and there's no way in heck should northern Minnesota be reaching 100 degrees in June. Now, I used to live in Minnesota years and years ago, and that's just unheard of. And for line 3, Enbridge's line 3, to be asking for so much more water. In fact, they just came out today saying they wanted 100 times more water than they originally asked for. When they are in a drought, a multi-year drought up there is absolutely ridiculous. And this is what these companies do. Keystone XL had asked for that, and of course we nixed it. But Mountain Valley is asking for this increase in water. And all these pipelines, what they don't tell you is that they all need water. But there's only a finite amount of water in this world. And if you talk to my Hunka mom, my adopted mom, Casey Camp, is you'll hear her talk about how water has memory, and how that water, if you sit there and you listen to that water long enough, you're going to start remembering things if you're quiet enough. And so that's something that I challenge each and every one of you to do, is go listen with the water. But let's talk a little bit about Dakota Access Pipeline, because the youth, for those of you that may remember, this winter they decided that they were going to run from Cheyenne River, and they were going to run all the way back up to Ocheti Shakoi Camp. And in the middle of winter, and it was like minus 20 degrees, and these youth were out there running. What they did is they resurrected and they revived the spirit of fighting Dakota Access Pipeline. And if you remember correctly, it was the youth that really pushed forward the fight for Dakota Access Pipeline. I couldn't do it, even as the first camper, I couldn't do that. But it was the youth that picked up the torch, and it was the youth this spring that relit that torch again for fighting DAPL. And so they went to Washington, D.C., and at that time we were waiting to hear, well, are the courts going to listen and actually shut down the flow of DAPL while the EIS is done along the Missouri River? Well, that eventually was heard by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, well, we're not going to make a decision on this. We're going to toss it back to district court back down in Texas. And of course, we all know Texas is an oil-loving state. And so that district court, within a week of getting that back in their docket, they decided we're going to let the oil continue flowing through DAPL. Well, the tribes have then since decided, well, we're going to try to become, we're going to try to have our say in this EIS, and we're going to try to be complementary to this environmental impact study. At least Standing Rock did. Cheyenne River has met with the Army Corps of Engineers, and so has Yankton. But everything right now is kind of at a standstill, and the tribes are figuring out what exactly they're going to do. We still have a treaty fight when it comes to Dakota Access Pipeline. And that treaty fight was one of the things that was cited when we won to get the EIS, because every step along the way that we have taken Kelsey Warren and his Dakota Access Pipeline to court, we have won every step of the way, except for this last ruling down in Texas. And every step along the way, they said that Dakota Access Pipeline is an illegal pipeline. It never had all of its permits. And that's something we've said since April 1st of 2016. So things are kind of at a standstill right now, and the tribes are figuring out what they're going to do. Like I said, we still have a treaty fight with them. North Dakota still does not have a spill response plan for DAPL that would be adequate should it leak. And of course, should it leak, it will eventually get into not only Standing Rock's new water intake, but also Cheyenne River's new water intake. And if, the Cheyenne River, our brand new multi-million-dollar water intake feeds about 1/4 of all of South Dakota with fresh water. So that's one of the reasons why we were fighting Keystone XL and DAPL so hard, is we want people to have fresh, clean water, that everybody deserves fresh, clean water. So like Penny said, some of you may have been watching on June 7th when the People's Treaty Gathering went out and did some actions over there in Minnesota. So that the couple days before June 7th, we had the Anishinaabe, the White Earth, and the Red Lake reservations and people there had invited us over there to have a treaty people's gathering. And what was really important that came out of that treaty people's gathering is the understanding, and of course I was saying this up at DAPL, but it's an understanding that everybody is a treaty person. Now let me explain that a little bit. We know that as Indigenous people, that our tribes, different tribes signed treaties with the United States government. The Anishinaabe signed, I think it was a treaty in 47, a treaty in 54, and a treaty in 55. The Oceti Sakowin signed treaties in 1851, and of course in 1868. And of course, other tribes had other treaties too. The Puyallup had treaties um, up there in the northwest coast, and of course, Cherokee had treaties, and but different tribes had different treaties. So we, as descendants of those treaties, have certain rights and obligations that we've had to fight for a very long time, including our right to freedom of religion, which we won in '78. Um, our right to health care, which is why there's Indian Health Services. Right to health care, but doesn't mean it's the best of health care. That's something else. But we do have the right to that. And of course, the right to education. But the non-Indigenous people who moved into our treaty territories are also descendants of those people who signed those treaties. And as descendants of those peoples are the government that signed that treaty, then they also are treaty people. And while we got the bad end of the stick when it came to treaties, they got the good end of it. They got to reap all the rewards of the treaties, And they didn't have to pay a heavy price for it, whereas we did. But they're still treaty people. So what came out of that gathering was that since we're all treaty people and this one group of people got to reap all the rewards, now it's time for them to start paying for what they have received, what they continue to receive. And by paying for that means that they need to come stand with us, Indigenous people, on our lands and tell their government to honor the treaties. And to also be to stand in protection of us, Indigenous people, because there's way more of them than there are of us. We are still recouping our numbers. While in my own lifetime, we have tripled our numbers, because there used to be less than 1 million. Now there's almost 3 million of us. But that's still just a little tiny bit. There's more of them. So when we go stand the line, they should be out there in front, be willing to take what those militarized police are ready to do to us. So what you saw on June 7th was two major actions that happened in Minnesota on line 3. One was run by the GNU Collective and Honor the Earth. And that's the one where you guys saw the helicopter, the Border Patrol helicopter come in. Now, those of us that were at Standing Rock, when we saw that happening, it was like PTSD all over again, you know, because those types of things happen to us. And luckily, they're going to be doing some kind of investigation. I'm sure they'll whitewash it and make it all pretty, but at least they're investigating it. Whereas at Standing Rock, they never did. But what you saw up there was people locking down, and people continued to lock down at that pump station for over 24 hours. They just did it in shifts. So every time more people would get arrested, others would go and lock down. And it was a beautiful action, and it was a long action, but that's where a lot of the arrests and the citations happened. Winona LaDuke said something like 170 people were arrested and 30 or 40 citations had been issued. Now, on the other action that happened, and this is the one where I was at, uh, there were drummers on the bridge, and I headed down to the bridge because once I hear drumming, I'm going to head that way. And then there was a march that happened of about 1,000 to 1,200 people, maybe more, that came down. And we had this long caravan. It must have been about 4 or 5 miles long caravan of cars headed out that morning. Anyway, they had this march, and we all met at the bridge. And of course, you guys saw Jane Fonda there, and that Arquette was there, and there were some other celebrities there, and people were there, and they all gave their speeches. I didn't go listen to the speeches. I'm not a big person on that. I was out on the bridge. And so we all met on the bridge, and then they decided, Grandma Mary Lyons decided that, well, I think we need to go to where that drill pad is going to be. But, you know, she wanted to do it in a good way, and that's what we usually believe in doing. We believe in doing things in prayer. And so that's what was done, is the prayer was taken, and they decided that they were going to go into ceremony, and they walked along the banks of the Mississippi, which is just this little meandering creek where we're at, because we were at the headwaters of the Mississippi. So it was just a meandering creek. You could walk from one side to the other in 2 or 3 seconds. That's all it is. That's where we were at. And it's absolutely beautiful. And so they walked up there and they decided this is where they were going to be. And originally they thought, well, we'll see if we can get through 24 hours. They got through 24 hours. Well, let's see if we can get through 4 days. And they got through 4 days. They were fasting. And they're praying. They're having ceremony. And the sheriff was talking to them. Of course, he happens to be an Anishinaabe member, tribal member. How amazing is that? Because if it hadn't been, I can guarantee you that the SWAT team would have come in right away. But because there was a tribal member in that position, and I'm not one to give props to police because I've had too many interactions with them, but there was a difference there. And so I will give props to that because it's a difference of thinking because he knew there was ceremony going on there. I don't know what he's like any other way, but I do know that he took his wife out there. That says something. Anyway, yesterday it was leaked on the internet that the Enbridge, because you have to remember how these things work. They're on an easement. So while the land around the easement is owned by a landowner, the easement itself has been given to Enbridge. So the landowner cannot call and say, hey, you're trespassing. Has to be Enbridge that calls and says, hey, you're trespassing. Well, Enbridge yesterday did that call and said they're trespassing. They also made a bunch of hoopla and lies in their stupid letter and said, oh, these certain people damaged equipment. There was no equipment out there to damage. And they were saying, oh, these certain people are a danger to themselves and to Enbridge employees. There's never been an Enbridge employee out there since they were out there. And the people there were perfectly fine. They were getting cooled in the Mississippi. Water was being brought, food was being brought in, and trash was being taken out. Everything was being done in a good way. Everything was being done in a good way. Of course, Enbridge is going to lie. That's the way these companies are. They like to lie all the time. Lie through their teeth. I don't got teeth, so I can't lie. That's my joke of the day. But today, there was a hearing it was an appeals court ruling by the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission had to give permission for Enbridge to continue their so-called replacement line because 2/3 of the so-called replacement line in Minnesota is actually going through new territory. It's not going through the old territories for the most part. It's going through new territory. And line 3 is just as big as Keystone XL was, and it's going to be carrying the same dirty tar sands as Keystone XL would have. So Keystone XL would have been the equivalent of 51 coal-fired plants released into the atmosphere. Line 3 is 50 coal-fired plants that's going to be released into the atmosphere as far as carbon is concerned. It's the same height, same diameter, going through new territory, and there's been no EIS done, no cultural surveys, no Section 106 done on multiple cultural sites, not Amish, not just Anishinaabe sites, but also Dakota sites, because part of that is traditional Dakota territory. This is a bad deal all around. So the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, they have to have a needs assessment done, and they said that there was a need for line 3, even when other departments of their own government said there was no need for it. So that decision was appealed. That was heard today. The 3 judges, unfortunately, 2 of them said there was a need for line 3 and one said there wasn't. So the decision moves forward saying that they lost the appeal. There's still one more round of potential appeal that could happen. And of course, there's still the treaty fight, which is going to be ongoing. Now, the land up there in northern Minnesota, when the 1855 treaty was made with the Anishinaabe did cede that land. And one of the things that they agreed to in their treaty was that they could hunt, they could fish, and they could travel, and they could gather unimpeded. They never gave up those rights. So them gathering on the banks of the Mississippi is definitely part of their treaty. And they should have every right to do that. And they should have every right to have ceremony there. And they did. And in fact, ceremony has been continuing at that site for several months now on every single Monday. That is now a sacred site. You see, these oil companies and these governments like to think that we are a stagnant culture. We're not a stagnant culture. Cultures, by their very nature, are not stagnant. They are ever evolving and ever moving forward. And so that now is now a sacred site. It's always been a sacred site, the headwaters of the Mississippi. Always. It's just now it's more sacred because the other things are going on there now. This is just the beginning when it comes to line 3. This is really important. There is not one camp or there's not one point where everybody's gathering like there was at Standing Rock. And yes, at DAPL there was 227 rivers and lakes and bodies of water that they had to cross, but we were kind of stuck along the banks of the Cannonball. They're not stuck along the banks of any river when it comes to line 3. So there are several camps when it comes to line 3. Camp McGeezy, Camp Ginu, the Ginu Collective. There's the Red Lake Treaty Camp. There's the Minoman Camp. And each one of these camps, and there's other camps that are getting ready to spring up that I can't really talk about right now. But each one of these camps has their own culture. But one of the most amazing things is they're all run by women. I love it, the power of women. And each one of them has their own culture and their own way of doing things and their own idea of how to do things, to how to stop line 3. But all of these different things are needed, and all of them are just equally as important. Of course, all of them do things in prayer, and that's the most important thing. So if and should you go out to line 3, I highly encourage you to do so. But do remember that this is not no eco-tourist visit. Do not go there thinking that they're going to take care of you. You should be taking gifts to them, including the gifts of knowledge. So you should go and get trained in NVDA. You should already have a lawyer you're ready to call. You should already have bail bond money should you need it. you should have your camping equipment ready. And I would highly suggest taking a partner with you, if for no other reason than that they can help pick ticks off of you, because they're going to get a lot of ticks. But go prepared. And don't go to be a drain. And remember to take the leadership of Indigenous women seriously. They do have different councils, and at some places they have very, very traditional councils. And so be ready for that. Oh, and if you self-identify as a woman, then please take a longerish skirt with you. And I say self-identify because all peoples in all genders are welcomed and appreciated there. And it's so cool to see, and it's great to be in that type of environment where that equality and that love is practiced. Um, it just makes me happy. Those are the updates.
That was awesome, Joy. Thank you so much. Really, really so grateful that you were able to be with us here today. So Isabella Zizi recorded a piece for us to share with you. She's at work today. If you don't know who Isabella Zizi is, I hope you get a chance to meet her someday. She's a member of the Northern Cheyenne, Arikara, and Muskogee Creek Nations. She's the youngest member of Idle No More SF Bay and one of the youngest signatories on the treaty. She was born where I live here in Richmond, grew up near the Chevron refinery, and she has just been a whirlwind of activism since she woke up to her responsibilities as a woman in this time right now.
I am a member of Idle No More SFA and a signatory on the Indigenous Women of the Americas Defending Mother Earth Treaty. And I reside on Ohlone lands in the village of Huchin, also known as San Pablo, California. I'm here today to invite you, your loved ones, your friends, and your colleagues to join the Bay Area Treaty signatories in writing and delivering 1,000 letters to President Biden to stop the Line 3 and Dakota Access pipelines. To give some context for both pipelines, so any leak from DAPL into the Missouri River will harm millions of people's water supply and agriculture. The new pipeline replacement for Line 3 would violate Anishinaabe treaty rights, threatening their waterways, wild rice, and culture. And this is what we don't want to happen. This is also where we come in to share our words, our concerns, and what we envision our world to be that is fossil-free, healthy, and just for future generations to come after us. So after this webinar, we will provide a template that you'll be able to use as is or as a guideline to help you how to write your letter. And we will have 3 letter templates for you to choose from and ask that you please choose the one that applies most to you. The first letter is for Indigenous women who have signed on to the Indigenous Women of the Americas Defending Mother Earth Treaty. The second one is for Indigenous peoples and First Nations peoples. And lastly, the last letter is for our allies who are in alignment with us and support the need for a just transition that is fossil-free and for a world for all of us to live in with clean air, clean water, and clean soil. And for everyone who is active on Twitter, we invite you to join us on Monday, June 21st, all day to tweet to the president, to share a photo of yourself, a photo of your letter, and even a photo of you delivering the letter into a mailbox. It's really nice for us to use snail mail as an option, so that way they would really have to read our letters and hope that they respond to us. And when you tweet these photos or tweet any sayings, you can use hashtags that says Biden Stop Line 3, Summer Solstice 2021, Indigenous Women Rising, 1,000 Letters to Biden, and Biden Stop DAPL. What do you say? Are you in? Will you join me and 999 others or more in writing a letter to the president? Will you stand and defend with the water protectors who are defending the land, protecting the waters, and the sacred system of life? This is so important for all of us to be involved. Whether you are a young child or an elder in the golden age, we need all of your voices to participate in this, to make sure that the Line 3 and Dakota Access Pipelines would be put to an end. And any of this information that I'm sharing with you today will actually be shared on our Facebook page that you're more than welcome to take a look at. And you can just go on Indigenous Women of the Americas Defending Mother Earth Treaty. That's where you can find the links to the tabs of the templates. And you're also able to look up the different hashtags as well. So I'm looking forward to writing letters with you. I'm looking forward to seeing your photos and just taking this action to support the water protectors. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Isabella.
Penny,
Yes.
they're arresting people right now at Firelight Treaty Camp. And some of them left of their own accord about a half an hour ago. And they went in, they're arresting the rest of them right now.
You know about how many people were still there, Joy?
I don't know where the feeds were cut. You know what happens. They go in and they cut what little service you got. Even Unicorn Riot was cut. So we will find out in a few minutes as soon as I do watch Rise in IEN, and we'll get it up as fast as we can.
Okay, great. Thank you for the update. So we will just add our prayers of protection and safety, prayers for the water, prayers. We'll make a big prayer, Joy, at the end for what's happening. So this, obviously, it's so important for you to write these letters and to tweet to Biden. He's, you know, he can stop these two pipelines. And we already know that for the future to be secured for all the babies to come, these pipelines need to be stopped. And so it's up to us. I want to add that we no longer have 3 letters. We have 1 letter, because for people who want to email the president on the website, it's a limited number of characters. And so we just reduced it all. And there are links that people can go to stop Line 3 and to the best article I could find on DAPL facts. So please go to Indigenous Women of the Americas Defending Mother Earth Treaty page on Facebook. We don't have a webinar. It's sponsored by the women here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I mean, we don't have a website, sorry. And so please write these letters, tweet to the president and to the White House on Monday, the June 21st, and share with your friends and your family. Like, call people and tell them how important this is. The president can stop this. He's the only one that with the pen can stop this from moving forward. It is vital for all of us. I'm a grandma. If you're a grandma or a mom, this is your responsibility to just write a letter. You know, if you can get to the camp, go. If you can get to Line 3, go. If you can't, then pay attention to things that you actually can do. And this is one small, easy thing that you can do. We said 1,000 letters because we think that there are at least 1,000 people. If we all reach out to the people that we know and say, hey, you know, this is important to me personally that you do this. This is for all of our children. This is for the sacred system of life to continue. So please go to Indigenous Women of the Americas Defending Mother Earth Treaty and follow the instructions there. They're pretty clear. You know, we worked really hard to make everything really clear. Call your friends and family and ask them. Take the photos and share them on social media. That really helps. When you do that, use the hashtags that are easy to find on our Facebook page, and also tag your friends and tell them why this is important. And have your sign there saying why you're doing this. Why are you doing it? Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why is this important to me personally? And just go do it and share it with everybody. We need you to do this. The sacred system of life needs you to do this. All the babies to come need you to do this. Once these, you know, simple things that you can do. They're easy. You're not, if you're going to do this, you're not at line 3, you're not at risk of getting arrested or hurt. So please do this. And I think that's it. Oh, I just want to thank all of the organizations who have endorsed our action, our summer solstice action. There's quite a few of them, and you know who you are, and thank you. We really appreciate your help. I'm going to also ask you to share this information out on all your social media channels. And you know, tell people how important it is to you that this is done. It's super easy compared to what other people are doing. So I think that's it. We'll take a couple of questions. I want to make sure that we leave enough time for all of us to join our hearts in prayer for what's happening right now at line 3. So Shannon, are there some questions that people have?
Yes, hi. I've been answering some of them as we go. I think a lot of people just want, if you can, again, there are questions about, is snail mail more effective? Then, you know, what's the best way? If I want to go to line 3, where do I go? If I want to participate in the summer solstice action, you know, what's, you know, who do I follow? All those best things. So if we can say them all those again, I'll capture them and make sure that they're put in an email to everybody.
So you want me to say that now?
Sure, but one of the
right. So I think, I'm sorry. So do all 3 things. It's not that big of a deal. Geez, there's people that are putting their lives on the line here. So snail mail a letter to Biden. Email another letter to Biden. Let's make them have to read over 1,000 letters, email and snail mail. Do all 3 things. Tweet to Biden, all 4 things. Put your signs up, holding your signs, and put them all over social media and tag at the White House. Somebody has to look at that. If they're getting over 1,000 messages that they have to read at the White House Facebook page and on the White House Twitter page, then they're going to pay attention. So do all of them. I'm asking you personally. I'm doing all of them. Plus, none of us are getting paid for this, okay? So all the effort and the time and the love that we put into this, it's because we love the sacred system of life. We love what Mother Earth has created here. We love the sky and Grandfather Sun and all the elements of the universe. And Mother Earth is just one tiny little part of that. We're like in the outskirts of our galaxy. We need to take care of what we've been blessed with here. So write the snail mail letter, take a picture of you putting it in the box, email the White House. It's all the instructions are on the page. Take that photo and tweet to POTUS on Monday, next Monday, okay? And then Joy will tell you the best way of how to find out about how to get to line 3. She already gave you the protocols. So don't forget the protocols. There have been things that have happened there that are not appropriate. And so, you know, she already laid that out for you. follow it so you don't get in trouble. Don't go in there telling anybody what to do. You go there humbly. You go there, ask how you can help. You go there with an open heart and pay attention. Don't ask 5 million questions. Look and see what people are doing and ask how you can help. Go ahead, Joy.
So I would first tell everybody, stopline3.org. That's a really good clearinghouse to go to, and also to get information about how to get to line 3. But also gives you a lot of background information. And if you're gonna go to line 3, go read all that background information. Read it all. That way all your questions are answered and you're not there bothering somebody with, why this, why that. The other thing you can do is go to Facebook, watch Ginyu Collective, watch Honor the Earth, watch Rise Coalition, and Indigenous Environmental Network, Indigenous Rising Media. We will have all the information up that as it's coming out, because we've got people on the ground. Rise does, Ginyu, Honor the Earth, Indigenous Environmental Network. We've got people on the ground, and we'll get as much information out as possible. But like I said, each one of the camps has their own protocols and requisites for going to camp. So what you need to do for Ginyu is going to be different from the Nomen, and what you want to do for Winona's camp is going to be different than for any of the other camps that are going to pop up. So definitely be paying attention to that. They're all women led. So remember, if you can't handle matriarchy at its most beautiful, don't go. I mean, seriously, if you can't handle that, then, seriously, just, do a food drive, do a fundraiser, do everything you can online. But seriously, this is matriarchy at its most beautiful, its most active, and it's powerful. But my eyes are like looking over here going, who's getting arrested? And yeah. So, but everybody can say a prayer tonight. Everybody can get a glass of water and hold that water and say a prayer with it. Everybody can offer that prayer to the world. That spiritual release has a lot of energy to it. And like I said, water has memory. So.
Shannon, do we have just a couple of minutes to do a closing prayer?
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to say that other people have asked questions that are, they're actually large questions about how, companies can get away with that, with what they're doing. That's a really, that's
Well, companies get away with what they're doing in the Bay Area and at Line 3, and what they're happening up in Canada, and what happens in the Amazon, but specifically here in so-called United States and so-called Canada, is that the regulations and the laws that you think as Americans or as Canadians think that are there to protect you and to protect your interests as citizens are not there to protect you. They're not there to protect your rights as citizens. They are there to protect corporate interests only. These countries are built on colonization, and colonization would not have happened if not for corporate greed. It is built off of greed and colonization, and this is just continued colonial genocide. Only now it is being turned on you, the American citizen. Are you the Canadian citizen, or the interest of America, Canada, and now China and other places like that, in places like the Amazon?
So I just want to also add to that, thank you so much, Joy, that at movementrights.org, we have a whole list of webinars and some of them cover the corporatocracy and the history of how it rose up here on Turtle Island. So I encourage you to go to movementrights.org to the webinar page, or go to YouTube. We have a YouTube channel there. Shannon and I are co-founders of Movement Rights, and Movement Rights works with tribes and communities to align human law with the natural laws of Mother Earth. So there's lots more information about that on those. You can watch those webinars. And Casey Camp Horinek, somebody that we all deeply love and admire and are all feel grateful to be to know her and love her. She's in just about every single webinar. And so if you haven't heard her or seen her speak, then it will be a real treat for you. And so is there anything else pressing? Oh, I also wanted to add that if we haven't answered your question, just send a message on the Indigenous Women of the Americas Defending Mother Earth Treaty page, and if we can't answer it, we will do our best to find somebody who can answer your questions. So we don't want to just leave you hanging, so. And
as Movement Rights will be sending you, is hosting this on our Zoom page, we will send out an email from Penny and me with just following up with all of the links and everything, as well as where you can see this and share this video after the event. So if you didn't get your question answered exactly as you want it, we'll provide all that information so you can get all the information that you need. And with that, I think we can close.
So we'll just have a short prayer. If you can join me. I want to start the prayer by just sending our gratitude to the Creator for joining our hearts and our minds and our beingness together while we think about our relatives there at line 3 and our relatives around the world that are standing up for Mother Earth, for the water, for the air, and for future generations. And send them the strength that is required to stand on the front lines. Send them the love that we have in our hearts. We're bundling up all the protection that we can imagine in a good way and sending it to them. We're sending our prayers to law enforcement at line 3, that their hearts are cracked open with understanding and compassion and empathy, not only for the people on the front lines, but for the water, for the air, for all of our non-human relatives that are there right now. We pray that the water protectors and land defenders have all the resources that they need to do what they're doing in the best way possible. We call upon the grandmothers and grandfathers in the East, in the South, in the West, in the North, above and below, to take a look at what is happening, to provide their guidance, to provide their wisdom, and to provide their protection, like great wings spreading over all of the water protectors and land defenders. Creator, thank you so much for all that you bless us with. Thank you, Mother Earth, for all that you give us. Thank you to the winds, to the fire, to the air, to all of our non-human relatives. Thank you to all of the ancestors that are listening in right now and our unseen helpers. We bundle up our gratitude and we send it to all of you. Thank you. So go write those letters.
Yeah, write the letters.
Go get ready to tweet to POTUS.
Make
Go
your
write.
sign. Write your letters.
That's right. Do the right thing. And thank you for joining us.